Hi, Onigashimasu. Welcome back to the Goju Karate Center. I'm sitting on the hot seat and I'm trying to answer a couple of questions that I've picked up while going through the comments at the bottom of videos. So somebody was asking in regards to training programs and home training and what programs you should try and follow. This is probably a really difficult question to answer because the simple nature of karate lends itself to karate as a concept or as an educational field is quite huge. And the more you get into it, the larger it gets because you start discovering different galaxies. Every time you learn a new kata and go down a little wormhole doing some new bunkai, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think the general overview here, and I'm going to try and keep this video for as short as possible, would be to give you some pointers on what to do. So if you're training at home and you're looking at your training time, you need to figure out how long can you dedicate to the dojo. And if it is like most Western dojos where you're trying to dedicate 1 hour, 2 or 3 times a week, then I would suggest the following as a basic format. So a condensed warm-up. In Goju, we would be doing the Hojo Undo. In its full extended version, it's about 45 minutes. But you can condense it quite easily down to about 15 minutes, which is running through all the joints from the toes to the top of the neck. Then spend about 5 to 10 minutes doing the PT, the physical conditioning that comes after that, the breathing exercises, the knees, smacking the hand, toe touches, etc. The push-ups, the sit-ups, the physical exercises, the double back kick, land on your toes, that little bit of conditioning, 5 to 10 minutes. If you happen to have a training apparatus like a chishi or a bag, take 5 or 10 minutes and work on that. If you wish to superset that with some basics, some kihon, some fundamentals, then take a section of kata, and if you're doing hammer fist from cipher kata, then maybe you'll be doing the same thing with chishi, then onto a bag, and then back into the kata. And in doing this, what you're doing is you're creating muscle memory, but you're also creating resistance on the muscles, which will help them develop and make them more powerful and more conditioned as you're going along. Obviously, the more you can tie in your kihon with your Hojo Undo, your apparatus training, your conditioning training, the better the two merge, the better for your body. Obviously, fresh air doesn't punch back, so hitting a bag is really important, hitting a makiwara is important. But doing it in moderation is also very, very important. If you don't know how to put a bag up or put a makiwara in at your house, easiest suggestion, get an old belt, find a tree with a diameter about yay thick, and wrap your belt around it, and then just slowly just use that to work as your makiwara. Tree makiwara, very nice. And then go online and have a look. There are hundreds of videos on YouTube on how to create Hojo Undo apparatus and how to do Hojo Undo in different guises and forms. If you like reading, Morihiro Sensei is probably his original books. I've got a lot of Hojo Undo in them. There is everything from the Chishi, Susashi, Kongo Ken. It's in that book. Another great book is The Art of Hojo Undo. I'm hoping I got that right, by Mike Clark in Australia. Phenomenal book. Gives you an entire breakdown of virtually all the Hojo Undo equipment that is generally used. And don't go out of your way to make it as expensive as possible. In the early days when they were trying to find stuff, what the old-time masters used to do was find all the junk and scrap and use that to train. And so from there, I would then naturally leapfrog across, if I'm talking strength and conditioning, look at any functional training that you might see, tipping tires, sledgehammer work, moving rubble, wheelbarrows up and down, wheelbarrow packed full of bricks or rubble, just to help condition and strengthen the body as you're going. And that would be your conditioning. Sometimes you can dedicate an entire hour to this kind of training, but I wouldn't do it every single class. The most important thing is the refinement on your kata. And in most schools, the idea is that you understand that the kata is done a particular way for grading, and you may deviate a little bit in your personal research and study. If you're a low belt, obviously the deviation is less acceptable, and if you're a higher belt, it is more tolerable and more acceptable. And then explore bunkai. Without a partner, and when you do get to the dojo, then you make use of a partner at the dojo if you can. So this brings me to the next thing. The reason why we have dojos is very simple. Sensei in the dojo will offer corrections, and those corrections are usually what you should take home and work on, and that will help you improve. Second thing is, dojo is there for equipment that you might not have, that you can train with that equipment. And the third thing is that you find a partner in the dojo that you can train with, and if COVID and Corona allows in this time, in this day and age, that you can train with a partner, then by all means get together with your partner, work, and help develop yourselves. Obviously, I stole these ideas, they're not my own, and I think off the top of my head, they come from Peter Urban, The Dojo, a book which I often use as a very, very good reference. If you lack a partner to spar with, then obviously the best, lightest, easiest thing to do is to take your belt, hang it inside a door frame, and use your belt as a target. If you're fortunate enough to have a punch bag, that's a little bit better, because obviously you can hit a punch bag really a lot more effectively. And then obviously you have to deal with the idea that somebody might have some kind of punch or kick. So sometimes what you do is maybe take a broomstick or something and tie it to the punch bag with some belts or some tape, and then block and hit, block and hit. And again, be creative and apply shuhari to your training, and you can also apply shuhari to how you work in a creative way with equipment. I hope this answers everything in terms of a training program in the dojo. And then obviously if you wish to finish your sessions with something a little bit more relaxing, do a good stretch. Every training session should essentially contain some level of warm-up, some level of cool-down at the ends, and in between you should be trying to pick up the pace quite vigorously so that you're getting a good workout, but you're also developing yourself, you're developing your ability to fight fatigue and resistance. And then, where possible, include some resistance training, some basics, some application work, even if it's against fresh air, and then some kata. Some days, survival training, how many kata can I do in 1 hour? And work on developing your survival. So, like I said, unfortunately it's such a big topic, but I would go that route at first. That is the closer to the more classical way of training. And yeah, if you see karate in everything that you're doing, you will find its true beauty. And again, something that I've stolen, I think this quote comes from Ishin Funikushi. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you.